Hi nail friends, it's Rebecca with Team Ladybug and I'm here with June Beetle Box nails. So first of all, in the box you've got 2 Gemstone gel polishes, a crystal crown Dappen dish, and 5D sculpting gel along with a mixed jar of caviar beads. These are the items I used for this set. I used a petal brush, a 9mm brush, I used an alcohol ink brush, and a dotting tool crystal picker. I also used black color cocktail ink, mustard color cocktail ink, brown color cocktail ink, red carpet metallic glaze, velvet touch matte top gel, Better Be Butterscotch, Turkish Delight, those are both from the Eye Candy collection, Midnight Licorice, also from Eye Candy. I also used Vintage Villain Cream Full of Woe. I used the Caviar beads. I used Crystal Embossing Gel. I used the Silver Meribella paint. I used Whipped Cream Gel in Silver. I used the Turquoise 5D Sculpting Gel, the Jade Gemstone Gel, the Citrine Gemstone Gel, and the Dappen dish. I pre-prepped the nail tips so we would have a faster time. I used Midnight Licorice on the first one, and then for the following 3 nails I used Turkish Delight, and for the final nail I used Better Be Butterscotch. Here I want to take note, I chose those colors because the Better Be Butterscotch goes with the Citrine, the Turquoise goes really well with the Turkish Delight, and also with the Jade Gemstone Gel. So depending on the colors that you got, because you could have gotten different colors, you might want to match your base colors in the Eye Candy collection or whatever you have with the Gemstone Gel that you have. The first nail has the base of Turkish Delight on here, but we're going to use the 5D Sculpting Gel, and I'm using Turquoise. There's a QR code on the back and that'll take you to the MSDS sheets, but you can also look online for the product information. I'm going to use the Dappen dish. I've filled it with water and I just have a silicone tool. I'm going to grab some of the 5D sculpting gel and I'm going to place it on the nail. Just a little bit. You don't need a whole lot because we've already basically have the nail form. So get it out of there and place it on the nail. You can use a silicone tool for this part. You could use a silicone stamping tool for this part if you want to make it smoother. I'm just going to burnish it in with the silicone tool. I don't even need water at this point. It's really malleable and it should only be used with tap water. Don't use any other kind of water, but it'll help you smooth it out. You don't need any other special solution. You will cure it in the lamp for 60 to 120 seconds depending on the thickness. This is pretty thin but a little bit thicker in the center, so I'm going to cure it for 2 minutes once I have it molded the way I want. I'm trying to make it look like a stone here, so I'm taking a smaller silicone tool that I have and I'm going to put in a little bit of lines and creases and just make it a little more dimensional, I guess is what I want to say, more like a natural gemstone, not a carved or finished gemstone, but like an actual stone itself. And I'm going to smooth it out a little bit with the rest of my bigger silicone tool and put in some lines and marks, but I want it to be stone-like. So I would recommend getting a picture of stone or whatever color gel you have. I would go with that and see what it looks like online, and then you can basically go off of that. I'm just going by memory because I've made a lot of jewelry and I know what they look like. So once you're happy with it, go ahead and cure for 2 minutes. Okay, so we're back and we are going to use alcohol ink. So I grabbed mustard and brown and I'm just going to dot them on. I am really wiping my brush off before I dot this on because I don't want it to be overly covered, and I just need a little bit of ink here and there. I started with the brown and now I'm adding tiny dots of mustard, and maybe just a little bit more on the bottom. I'm going to get my alcohol ink brush and I'm going to feather this out with about a half of a brush full of acetone just to give it some texture and a little bit of depth. Yours is probably not going to be exactly like mine, so make sure you put your ink and your lines where they go with how you molded the 5D sculpting gel. I did not even put any matte top coat on here. It goes right over the gel really well, so you don't have to add a matte top coat to this to use the alcohol ink. So I'm just putting it around where I want, taking a little bit more acetone, making it lighter, moving some of the ink around to give it some lines. And this is supposed to be sort of like a turquoise, like a really bright turquoise. So I want it to look, I don't know, mottled. Turquoise can have so many different forms depending on the kind of turquoise it is. So we're just going to go ahead and make it look turquoisey. You may have to add a little bit more color, some of the mustard, some of the brown, depending on how thick you put it on. But you can always take off and you can always add more. So don't worry if you think you messed it up. Just either take off a lot more or add a little bit more here and there just to give it the depth. Layers of this until you get it the way you want it. And also remember that when you put your top coat on, if you do matte or you do shiny, it's gonna be a little bit darker than what it shows that you're doing. So just adjust your alcohol ink, do your lines to give it some depth like any stone would have. Again, I recommend looking up stones online if you don't have a good knowledge of what they look like in person. Now we're going to get metallic glaze because we did put alcohol ink all over this, and we're going to coat the top of it. Do a super thin layer. You still want the texture in here, so I use the metallic glaze both on the shiny and the matte versions of this nail. I just also added a matte top coat or a shiny top coat afterwards. In this case, we're going to use Ladybug Luster Wet Look Top Gel after that metallic glaze was cured, and we're going to apply it, again, a thin coat because you want to keep the texture. Don't be afraid to wipe off more if you've got it a little too thick. I'm going to do that here because I don't want it to be pooling and glaze over the whole nail. I want texture on this nail. So once I'm happy with how much gel's on there, I'm just going to stick it in the lamp and do a full cure. All right, now I'm back with the silver whipped cream gel and a 9mm brush, and I'm going to add prongs onto the sides of this gem. And I am just doing little triangles here and there, depending on the size and shape of your nail will depend on how many prongs you have. I do recommend doing at least 2 on each side, and you can do 1 at either end if you want. Probably at the top end, but I wouldn't recommend putting 1 at the bottom end just because it'll look awkward, but definitely I would put 1 at the top as well. And since this is a pointed nail, it looks really good with the bottom end not having any sort of prong at it. So because the silver whipped cream gel was a little bit too glimmery, but it did add texture for me, I am going to stir up my silver Meribella paint. And I am going to put some on my palette here. Make sure you have enough because we'll be using this later on as well. And I'm just going to take a 9mm and I'm going to coat over the silver that I've used. You don't have to do this step. You can stick with just the silver whipped cream gel, but I want it to look like an actual piece of silver. So I'm making my little prongs have depth with the height of the whipped cream gel and also a little bit of sheen, and to make it sort of look like it's actually silver on the nails. The Meribella paint does a good job of that. So I had cured the whipped cream gel fully, and now I'm going to put the Meribella on and cure that fully as well. Just getting the lines here good, but Once it's all done, you're going to say, wow, that really does look like little prongs. And the nail actually looks like a gemstone. So I hope that this works with the colors you have, and I hope you try this. Okay, so for the next nail, we're going to use Better Be Butterscotch as our base color. And I am taking the Jade Gemstone gel that I have for this. And I am going to also take the petal brush. I'm just going to get some of the gemstone gel, put it on my palette for now. And then I'm going to grab Vintage Villain Cream Full of Woe. I'm going to put some of that on my palette. And using a 9mm brush, I'm going to draw the outline of my gem. So at this point, you can do the gem as wide or narrow as you want. You can do a different shape if you want, depending on the shape of the nail you're using. But you want to have an outline in black of what your gem is going to be. This part has to be black because we're going to use the silver Meribella paint over it later. And you need the black background just so the silver stands out a little bit more, gives it a stronger definition. So I'm just going to do my outline, and I'm taking my time here because I want this to look pretty nice, and this is going to be the final shape of my gem itself. So take your time doing this part to get the lines exactly how you want them. Once you're satisfied with how the lines are, you can go ahead and cure this. And I will be back in just a minute with the fully cured gem area. Okay, we're back, and now I'm going to get my gemstone gel, and I'm going to fill in this area in the middle of the gem. So gemstone gel is hyperpigmented. It's great for line work or detailed painting. I'm using it in a different way than you probably normally would because I just wanted to make a gem out of this, but you can use it for scroll work, any sort of thing like that. It's tack free. It will hold chrome and pigments, and this gemstone gel that the Beetle Box people got ahead of time will not be released until August 15th. So that's one benefit of getting the Beetle Box, is you get to try new products before they're released to the general public. Once your gem is completely filled in and you're happy with the way it looks, you can cure for 60 seconds. Now need to top coat this with Velvet Touch Matte Top Gel and let it cure for 60 seconds. I'm just coating the whole nail. Okay, now that it's cured, I'm going to come back with mustard and brown color cocktail ink, and I'm going to wipe off the brush really well and only do very tiny minuscule dots on here. I'm just gonna put little dots here and there because we want to do the finest lines because this is a really tiny gem. Get your acetone once that's dried and form it to make some tiny crevices and cracks. Try not to get it on the rest of your nail. The black line should prevent a little bit of a barrier. You can always wipe it off with pure acetone if you've come outside of the lines, but just try to be pretty delicate and careful and only use a half full brush of fluid, the acetone, so that it doesn't run all over the place. And again, take off a lot, and you can always add more later if you need to, or if you have a spot that you need to add the mustard to that didn't quite get mustardy enough, you can do that. But you can also use other colors depending on the color of the gemstone you're using, but most cracks and crevices would fall in the brown, mustard, and or black categories. So I would use those colors. Those are what I recommend for using to define your gemstone itself. Let that fully dry. And you could use metallic glaze at this point, but you don't need to because it's surrounded. I'm just going to put matte top gel on top of it. I'm sorry this is all fuzzy. I didn't realize I was out of focus. Now I'm coming back in and I'm going to use the Crystal Embossing Gel, and I'm just going to put some on my palette. I know that we're currently out of this product, so if you don't have any, it should be in stock by the end of July, if not sooner. So I'm just going to fill in the gem itself, and I'm using the Crystal Embossing Gel for this because it's like clear whipped cream gel and it will stay in place. If you don't have this product, you can always use a top coat. You can do a base layer, like a slip layer of the top coat, put it on there, do a flash cure for like 10 seconds, and then come back and do a second coat with a heavier drip on it, or a heavier layer, and just hold it upside down once you're done to make sure it pops out, and then you can cure. So now I'm going to come back in with the Meribella silver, and I'm just using my petal brush and I'm going around and covering up the black line. And this is so that it looks like the gem is in silver and has like a silver work to it. If you mess up, don't worry, you can clean it up with a cleanup brush. I'm actually just cleaned out my petal brush and I'm using a little bit of alcohol to get that off of there and make sure it's a crisp line. But go ahead and fully cure once you have it the way you want, and then we'll come back once that's cured. Now we're going to come again with the silver Meribella paint, and I'm just going to use my 9mm brush and draw an outline around the whole gemstone. So this is going around. We're just giving a little bit of dimension to the silver itself. I don't know if you've seen any handmade silver jewelry where they inlay a stone, but I'm taking some inspiration from a friend of mine, and I'm doing a little bit of design work around the stone itself. And just go ahead, draw your line as thin as possible. Even though you have a little ball on the end of your brush, you should be able to get the line without any clumps or bumps, and just make sure you do a pretty decent job. It looks like it's handmade anyway, so it just looks really pretty. Then you can cure that. Come back in using the metallic Meribella again, and now we're going to draw a line around the stone itself to make a double bezel on your gemstone. Take care to do this part so you don't get it all over the gem itself, and just outline the whole gem. This should actually be the easier part because you've got the raised gem itself, and just do a smooth job and then cure that. Now we're going to come back with a dotting tool and do little tiny beads of silver all the way around this bezel to give it a little bit more dimension. And I'm just going to take the dotting tool and go all the way around. It won't move if you do it fast enough. I wouldn't let it sit for a long time, but it will stay and hold its shape. And then once you're happy with that, you can go ahead and cure. And that's it. That's your finished nail. Okay, so for the next nail, I actually have the Midnight Licorice on here, and I matte top coated it. And now I'm taking Turkish Delight, and I'm just going to add a little half moon shape over the top edge of the nail. My line doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to cure. Now I'm going to come back in with the Jade Gemstone Gel, which matches, and you can see how perfectly that matches with the Turkish Delight. And I'm just going to fix the edge of my nail so it's absolutely perfect with the 9mm brush, and it'll give it a nice crisp edge. Then once that's good, I will fully cure. Now I'm coming in with my second coat of Turkish Delight, and I'll just fill that in and cure that. Now I'm coming in with the Citrine Gemstone Gel. I had Brooklyn just pick out an extra gemstone gel because I know that people didn't get like specific gels in their box. Everybody got different colors, and I just wanted like a random color to go with the other one that I got. And I'm going to do another teardrop, but this time we're going to do the opposite shape. I'm adding 2 dots for the top and the bottom, and then I'm just going to pull down my little parenthesis either side to make my teardrop shape. Depending on how comfortable you are with the teardrop, You can start at either the top or the bottom, but you're just going to take your gemstone gel, make your teardrop, and then fill it in and pull to a nice little point at the top. Once that's filled in, you can fully cure. Oops, made a little mistake there, just clean that up. And then I am going to cure. Now I'm going to come back with Velvet Touch Matte Top Gel. I'm going to put a little bit on my palette, and I'm going to coat the Citrine Gemstone Gel that I did, just that area with the matte top coat. I forgot to add that I added some dots on either side of the little teardrop shape, just to make it sort of look like a necklace. So I'm going to take my petal brush and I'm just going to apply the matte top gel only on the area where the teardrop is, and once that's coated, I'll cure. Okay, now we're going to come back in again with the mustard and the brown, and I am really drying my brush. I'm just going to add like the tiniest dots on here and there, and then I'm going to come back in with my alcohol ink brush and lightly dab off the color and make another gemstone. So we've got 3 basic gemstones made sort of the same way, but you get the idea. I think you'll be an expert at this point on how to actually make a stone look like a stone, and hopefully my video here shows you how I'm doing it. But obviously use your expertise and use your design skills to make it look the way you want it to look. And again, referencing pictures on the internet or actual stones that you may have in real life works really well. So go ahead, blend it out, make tiny little lines, tiny little cracks and crevices in your natural gemstones, and just work away until you're happy with the way it looks. Again, keep in mind that this will be darker than it looks on the nail, so whatever you happen to do, make sure you do it light enough. And especially with a lighter colored stone, you don't want like really garish dark lines. You want muted lines, you want lighter lines. So keep using the acetone. Again, you can always add another drop of color if you need to, but just lighten it up quite a bit before you let it fully dry and we get to the next step. That looks about right for me, so I think I'm happy. Once that's dry, I'm going to come in with matte top coat, and I'm just going to coat that little area. The whole rest of the nail's matte, so we don't really need to worry about that. And after the matte's cured, we'll come in with the silver Meribella, again creating a bezel around our teardrop. I'm just going to do a little thin, super thin line around here, elevating the look of your stone to have a silver bezel. Take your time using the Meribella paint around the edge. It's really easy to work with, and it doesn't just run on you. It's a little bit thicker, but it gives it a nice shiny silver finish without having to go into chrome. You could chrome this step, you could do that, but it seems like a lot of extra work to do chrome because you're just doing a little bezel around the outside. And if you did chrome, you'd have to use the artistic matte, and then you'd have to use outshine, and then you'd have to top coat it, and it would just be a lot of work, whereas this Meribella paint is just easy and simple to use. I'm adding a little bit of a point at the bottom because I'm going to take my Caviar beads and add them. So again, I'm taking Crystal Embossing Gel, and I'm going to fill in the little dots, make those raised so it looks like those are beads on the necklace. And I'm just going to do each one. This stuff doesn't move, so you can cure at this point, or you can wait and do the center. I'm just going to go ahead and do the center, and I am making my crystal or gemstone, I'm sorry, pop a little bit with this gel. Again, you could do this step with top coat if you don't have the gel. Just remember, only cure for 10 seconds to get your slip layer down on the bottom, and then you can come back in with a little bit thicker layer. And also, I do recommend turning this upside down to make the gel pop a little, and do it rather quickly. Don't let it sit if you're using top coat. With the embossing gel, you have a little bit more playtime. Okay, I've got my caviar beads, and I'm just going to dump some in the lid. I forgot to top coat this back part, so I'm just using Ladybug Luster Wet Look Top Gel. I'm going to cure that. Okay, now I'm coming back with the Crystal Embossing Gel, and I'm adding a couple of dots at the bottom. I'm going to use the larger caviar beads, so I need a bigger dot. And I'm just using the 9mm brush for this. And then I'm going to come in between where I made the raised yellow dots of the Citrine Gemstone Gel, and I want to put caviar beads in between there to finish the look of my necklace. And let's see. Okay, so now it's going to be deciding which caviar beads to use. So I'm using a bigger one, and then I want to try to find some matching ones. I didn't get a big jar of these like you guys did. I got a really small jar because I didn't want to take away from what anybody else might be getting. And these are limited edition to only the Beetle Box. So I'm just trying to pick out the right ones. Depending on whatever gemstone gel and whatever nail color you used, you could mix and match. You could do silver Meribella paint with copper or gold, or you could match them up. Then you can cure. All right, so now we're going to do a fun nail. This is my favorite nail, and I use the Turkish Delight. I put a base down, and now I'm going to put a second coat of the Turkish Delight down. Don't cure this. Go ahead, grab your Dappen dish, and I am using the Midnight Licorice. I'm just going to put a little bit in my Dappen dish, just like a dab of that. Then I'm going to take acetone. I have this container with a little straw, so I'm just going to take like 1, 2, 3 little drops of straw acetone in there, and then I'm taking an older brush and I'm mixing it up to make a really wet acetone-y black color. I'm going to take that same brush and I'm going to flick the black into the wet layer of the Turkish Delight until I'm satisfied that there's enough black flecks in it. It's going to merge and melt in this gel polish. And just remember, once you are happy with it, go ahead and cure, fully cure, and you've got your base of this nail. Now I'm going to come in with Velvet Touch Matte Top Gel at this stage and cover the nail with that and cure. Then I'll come in with Brown and Mustard alcohol ink, and I will put it on sparingly. I've already got black on here, so I don't want to overpower the whole nail. I'm just going to add a little bit here and there, and then I'm going to add some mustard also to the base of where the brown ink is, and I'll let that dry before I come back. Okay, so now I'm going to take my acetone on my alcohol ink brush, and I am going to make this go all over the place. I don't want it heavy thick. Again, I'm looking at, like, in my brain or, you know, online. Look at a stone, see how it looks. Depending on the stone you want, they have different patterns. They have different sort of veins in them. Some of them just have spots, and that's why I've used the mustard here to add a little bit of like a rusty kind of color to the stone. But I'm also adding veins and mottled marks with the inks themselves. I am just showing you how I've done this, but I think you can follow along without me explaining every detail, hopefully. I am, again, thinning it out with the acetone and making my veins the way I want, blending some of the mustard out to make it lighter because I just really want shading and cracks. I don't want this to look like a smoke nail or anything like that. I want it to look like an actual stone, or how a stone would look. And so I'm going to be thinning out and really moving this around a lot more than I probably would just a regular alcohol ink nail. I'm trying to get some definition, and that just takes a little bit more time. It's totally up to you how you want to do it, but some stones don't look like they have cracks. Some just look like they have weird, I don't even know how like the earth makes them that way, but I'm no gemologist here. But just make it look the way you want. And see, I'm adding little dots of acetone here to make sort of like holes or divots. So then once that's dry, you can go ahead and come back in with the matte top gel and cover it up. I am also going to add a little bit more black to this one. Because it's matte, it's not showing all the detail that the one I did with the wet look top gel. So I feel like I need to come in and add just a little bit more black and make it just pop a little bit more. I don't know, my stone doesn't look exactly the way I want it to look, so I think it needed a little bit more darker shade to it, and I'm just adding that on there. Looks like I'm taking a lot off, but I'm also making it so that it's pretty much the way I want. So, you know, use your judgment and go ahead and add colors as you need them. And once you're happy with it, we will put on metallic glaze. Okay, I missed metallic glaze step, but I went right ahead and added the matte top coat to this. You'd want to put the metallic glaze on first and then cure. So here's the comparison. I personally like the shiny one much better because you can see the mottled details. And here I'm showing you how thin these all are. You also do not have to do the pointy shape like I did on these. You can do an oval shape, a round shape, whatever shape you want. I hope these nails gave you some inspiration on how to use the products in your Beetle Box. And as always, thank you for watching, and thank you for joining us with Team Ladybug.